There's a reason you can't sit through a 5-minute video without checking your phone. Why an article longer than 2 paragraphs feels exhausting. Why even silence feels unbearable unless something's playing in the background. It's not that your brain is broken. It's that it's being trained, systematically, relentlessly, by the thing in your pocket. Smartphones weren't designed to make us stupid. But stupidity was always the easiest outcome. Not stupidity in the traditional sense. Not a lack of knowledge, but a rewiring of how we absorb it. Of how we focus, analyze, remember. The average human attention span has dropped to 8 seconds. That's shorter than a goldfish, yes. But more importantly, it's shorter than the delay on your favorite app's notification system. There's a reason the swipe, scroll, and refresh cycle feels endless. The system is working. You're feeding it with every flick of the thumb. And the results are everywhere. College students now zone out halfway through lectures. Readers skim headlines and repost without reading. Conversations derail every time someone hears a buzz. You've probably already considered checking something while watching this. That's not a moral failure. That's adaptation. But adaptation to what? To answer that, you need to go back, not to Silicon Valley, but to Socrates. Socrates once warned that the invention of writing would erode memory. If people could store thoughts externally, he said, they'd stop remembering internally. He feared that knowledge would become shallow, referenced, but never truly understood. That fear came true, then multiplied. Because writing may have changed how we stored thought, but smartphones changed how we process it. Thought itself now arrives prepackaged, cropped, captioned, algorithmically selected. TikToks, Reels, Stories, Shorts, speed over depth, sensation over structure. We no longer navigate ideas. We receive them in pulses, and the brain adapts. Neuroscience shows that high-speed digital content triggers short dopamine bursts the same way slot machines do. Every scroll is a pull of the lever. Every swipe a chance at something new, exciting, low effort. Over time, this erodes patience. Complexity becomes painful. Boredom becomes unbearable. And focus becomes fractured into confetti. So yes, on the surface, we are becoming dumber. Not in IQ, but in endurance. In the ability to think past the headline. In the ability to stay with a problem past the point of initial discomfort. But that's not the full story. Because just as smartphones are producing a new kind of cognitive decay, they might also be triggering a new kind of cognitive evolution. This generation is the first to be raised entirely inside the machine. And they're not just passive victims of it. They're reshaping themselves for survival. They consume content fast not because they're lazy, but because time is scarce. The economy they're inheriting offers no room for slow thinking. No job security, no affordable housing, no upward mobility. Why invest in outdated social scripts like climb the ladder when the ladder's been pulled up? So they reject it. The 40-hour work week? That was built for factory lines, not creative knowledge labor. Study after study now shows that most people are only mentally productive for 3 to 4 hours a day. This generation listened. They adapted. They want output, not attendance. And they don't stay loyal to corporations. Why should they? The loyalty is never mutual. Stay too long in one job and you fall behind. Jump and you negotiate more. Loyalty isn't rewarded. Leverage is. They learned that fast. Marriage, kids, a house in the suburbs? Not when rent's rising, wages are flat, and childcare costs more than tuition. They didn't abandon the dream. The dream abandoned them. So they stopped pretending. Critics call it laziness. But what if it's efficiency? If you can learn a concept in 90 seconds, why sit through an hour-long lecture? If a 5-minute YouTube tutorial teaches you more than an overpriced class, why not skip the classroom? The internet didn't just flood people with junk, it also removed the gatekeepers. Knowledge is now accessible to anyone willing to seek it, fast. And while critics complain about shrinking attention spans, this generation is synthesizing complex information faster than ever before. Watch a 14-year-old research a niche topic. Watch them edit videos, run side hustles, fact-check while arguing in Discord. They're not dumb. They're adapted. But that doesn't mean they're safe, because even evolution has trade-offs. What we gain in speed, we may lose in stillness. What we gain in access, we may lose in coherence. When everything moves fast, depth becomes a luxury. Silence becomes a threat. Boredom, once a space for imagination, now feels like suffocation. This is where the philosophers re-enter the conversation. Marshall McLuhan warned that the medium is the message, meaning the form of a technology shapes human behavior more than the content it delivers. A book forces linear thought. A phone rewards fragmented thought. A TV centralizes authority. A social feed decentralizes it, then weaponizes it with algorithms. Your brain becomes the shape of the medium you use most. That's the cost. And it brings us to the real danger. Not that we're becoming less intelligent, but that we're losing the kind of intelligence that used to sustain civilization. Empathy, for example, relies on attention. To understand someone, you have to sit with their words. You have to pause your own reactions and listen. But smartphones make that pause feel impossible. Everything trains you to interrupt, respond, dismiss. Critical thinking requires discomfort, the ability to hold conflicting ideas in your mind without panicking. But smartphones encourage rapid judgment. React, swipe, comment, forget, move on. There's no space for maybe, only for right now. Even memory, the foundation of wisdom, begins to slip. Why remember anything when you can just search it? Socrates' nightmare comes full circle. But here's where it gets complicated, because that same outsource everything instinct might be the seed of something greater. What if, instead of memorizing everything, this generation is evolving toward navigation, not storage? Maybe they don't need to know everything. They just need to know how to find it, filter it, and apply it quickly. A different kind of intelligence. Not deeper, but broader. Not slower, but faster. And possibly, just possibly, more adaptive to a collapsing world. But there's a trade-off. When you prioritize speed over substance, you start to optimize for clarity over complexity, for certainty over ambiguity. And in a world as messy as ours, that's dangerous. Because real solutions don't fit in a tweet. Real wisdom doesn't come with autoplay. Jean Baudrillard warned about this when he talked about hyperreality, where simulations become more real than reality itself. On your phone, everything is curated, highlighted, filtered. Context is stripped out, and what's left is a mirror world, full of noise, but lacking consequence. We begin to confuse visibility with value, popularity with truth, and eventually we forget how to tell the difference. That's where stupidity, in its modern form, creeps in. It's not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. It's a generation that knows a little about everything and believes that's enough. It's the rise of confidence without competence, of opinion as identity. Now pause, because this isn't about blaming young people. It's not even about blaming technology. It's about understanding what kind of world creates this behavior and rewards it. The system doesn't need critical thinkers. It needs fast responders. The more overwhelmed you are, the easier you are to sell to manage, to redirect. Attention, fragmented across apps, can't organize or resist. It can only consume. That's why everything is being shortened. Not just because it works, but because it prevents reflection. News becomes headlines. Headlines become images. Images become memes. And memes become ideologies. A single sentence becomes an entire belief system. No nuance, no depth, just frictionless conviction. But what happens when that kind of system faces real problems? Climate collapse, political instability, mass displacement. These aren't problems you can solve with swipe speed thinking. They demand focus, patience, the ability to tolerate discomfort, uncertainty, and moral complexity. That's what's at risk. It's not that smartphones made us dumb. It's that they're teaching us to reject the cognitive muscles required to live in a functional society. Muscles like empathy, memory, deep reasoning. These aren't luxuries, they're survival tools. But here's where the twist comes in. Maybe this isn't the end of thinking. Maybe it's a reset. Think back to oral traditions, before books, before mass literacy. Knowledge wasn't stored in shelves. It was passed in stories, rituals, memory games. Entire epics remembered by heart. The brain adapted to whatever storage format society required. Then came writing, then printing, then digital text. Now, video, image, voice, fragments. Each shift changes how we think. Each one looked like decline to the generation before it. And yet, here we are. So maybe what we're seeing isn't stupidity. Maybe it's transition. A new form of intelligence is emerging, chaotic, fast, hyper-connected, decentralized. It's flawed, yes. But it might also be more resilient, better at pattern recognition, better at adaptation. This new intelligence doesn't respect hierarchy. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't need a classroom. It thrives in open networks, remixing ideas, testing strategies, finding shortcuts. And maybe that's exactly what this generation needs to survive a collapsing system. Not obedience, not memorization, but agility. There's a reason traditional institutions are panicking. Schools, governments, corporations. They were built for a slower species, one that read the manual, one that waited its turn. But that species is being replaced by something else. Not necessarily better, just different. So yes, smartphones are changing how we think, possibly for the worse, but also possibly for the environment we've inherited. Because when the world is burning, you don't need a slow, methodical analysis of the fire. You need to move fast. Still, here's the danger. When everything becomes reactive, everything becomes unstable. Mobs replace movements. Virality replaces vision. And speed becomes a weapon. That's the double edge. It's not that the generation is stupid. It's that they're being forced to move at speeds that outpace reflection. And sometimes, intelligence isn't how fast you can answer. It's how long you can wait before you do. Socrates believed that wisdom began with knowing what you don't know. But in the age of smartphones, the moment you don't know something, you look it up, move on, and forget it. What's lost isn't the answer. It's the internal struggle that made the answer matter. And that might be the most dangerous loss of all. Because if we lose that struggle, if we lose the patience to wrestle with uncertainty, then the future might not belong to the wise, or even the fast. It might belong to whoever can trigger the most dopamine in the shortest time. And that's not intelligence, that's programming. So the question isn't, are we getting dumber? The real question is, who benefits if we are? And if we're not careful, by the time we answer that, we might be too distracted to remember what we were even asking.